Let's talk about New Zealand. Hello everyone. In today's video I wanted to cover the topic of working life in New Zealand. And New Zealand has been in the news for the right reasons. The way the pandemic has been dealt with and continues to be dealt with has been an envy of many other nations in the world. The country has enjoyed huge migrant inflows over the past decade or so, largely from China, India, the UK and South Africa. House prices are through the roof in terms of hot national topics are concerned. A lot of people have become rich via the property route and continue to enjoy the benefits of capital appreciation and leverage. The flow of the video will largely start by looking at the pros, then the cons, and just the overall macro working environment here in New Zealand. I'm not going to go into specific sectors or industries. Want to keep it relatively high level for just the general consumption of how it's like working here. And let's start with the pros. To have a good working environment, it's important to have strong employment laws, and luckily here in New Zealand the employment laws are very favorable for employees, and it's very hard to dismiss employees on grounds of non-performance, put it that way. Unless you've done something majorly, a criminal activity or fraud, chances are that you will keep your job. One of the only ways of companies laying off people is through restructuring and redundancies, and that's very common here in New Zealand. Almost every other company is restructuring. Now with restructuring it tends to carry a negative undertone, but I've seen people benefit from it a lot. In fact, probably here in New Zealand it'll be 50-50. Yes, it does impact certain individuals, but others end up getting a substantial amount of money. And if they're able to find a job pretty quickly, where the job market is relatively fluid here, depends on what industry you're in, then you've essentially capitalized on the restructure. So I don't see it as a bad thing at all. Probably the biggest benefit of working here in New Zealand is the work-life balance. Some may disagree with me, but in general, there are lots of holidays, there are lots of days off. You're not expected to work on, say, Saturday or a Sunday if you're doing a normal 9-to-5 job. If you do the math, on average, you get about 40% of holidays, obviously including Saturdays and Sundays, and that's a fair portion. I mean, you're only working 60% of the time in a year, and that's fantastic because it allows you to do other things in life. The Christmas break is long. A lot of people extend the leave during Easter as well, and most people try to take leave during the school holidays to attend to family as well. So work-life balance, I think, is pretty solid here, and definitely ahead of other countries out there in the world. Probably not some of the European countries. We don't have say 6-hour working days or 4-day working weeks, but maybe it's going to come. If it doesn't matter. We're still enjoying a lot of time off here in New Zealand. The people here, I must say, are fantastic, very friendly, and most of them are quite genuine. So you end up having a working environment that is very friendly and cordial. A lot of friendships are developed through work, and that's fantastic. It's not just turning up to work, doing your job and going. A lot of workmates hang out after work, and that's good to see. Obviously having a good morale boosts, in my opinion, performance. So that's great to see. And on people, there is a focus on diversity. If I look at the workforce around me, it is quite diverse. Where I see some improvement, and there will be improvement, no doubt, is the senior management and, say, CEO level positions. Those don't have that level of diversity as it is in the base workforce, if you may call it. But things are changing in the next 5 or 10 years. I truly believe that's going to change very quickly as well. Now, depending on the way you look at it, this may be a pro or a con, but in general, people here don't put too much emphasis on education and qualifications. More preference is given to experience and what you bring to the table based on your networks and where you've worked. And that's great, because it means that if for whatever reason you were behind in your studies in university, or you just got through, you don't get left out. There is still potential for you to touch the skies and really reach high senior management positions, and a country or an environment where everyone has the opportunity to excel is fantastic. Whereas if you're highly skilled and if you're highly talented, then it should be a breeze, because you will be in a very high demand. The competition here is not as stiff as other countries. It doesn't take that much effort to beat the competition here, and especially if you have worked in Australia and UK, your job prospects and employment opportunities, I feel, dramatically increase. So I feel in the skills department, due to lack of competition and fierceness, people from overseas, if they're talented enough and good at what they do, then New Zealand is a perfect place to come and work. Now, coming on to the cons, the biggest one, depending on, again, how you look at it, pay. Obviously, if you ask the question to most people, do you get paid enough? The answer may be no. I don't think that way, obviously. I think people are fairly paid based on the conditions that are presented to them. But if you are to compare like-for-like roles compared to, say, the US or the UK, then, or even Australia, New Zealand will pay less. Market size is small, number of people are small. As I mentioned earlier, the skill set is lower than the OECD countries in general. So how can you command a premium? Obviously, there are sectors where there is a skill shortage. Say, I don't know, housing, for example, where the guys are creaming it. They're making truckloads of money. And if you are in a job that is based on hourly rates and not, 9 to 5 jobs, then there is huge scope for expansion of income. And as I mentioned earlier at the start, that a lot of people are obsessed just purely investing in housing, so they've found secondary means of income and pushing that pay bracket higher and higher. So yeah, pay can be a bit topical, but for a like-for-like comparison with some of the other countries, New Zealand is lagging behind in terms of pay at this point in time. Now, the next couple of cons, they're kind of like more thematic in nature and don't directly impact individuals, but yeah, it's always good to know what sort of environment you're playing in. And the first one is low productivity. It's been a problem in New Zealand for the past 50 years or so. It used to be a very high productive nation in the 50s and early 60s, and since then it's had one of the worst scores as far as productivity is concerned. And I don't think it's to do with people not doing enough or sitting around. It's largely that output doesn't translate into value creation. The country does have problems in executing large projects, and that kind of, I'm talking about the government, but it also kind of trickles right through down to even corporations. The use of capital is not very efficient, and if you are in the process at the other side, you are earning money off these projects, if you may call it, then it's great, because you're getting paid to do a job and you might be getting paid very handsome. Who cares what the end result is? But look, ultimately, low productivity obviously has an impact on society. You end up paying a lot more through just normal consumer prices and taxation, and the country is feeling it. So something to watch out for. You may not be that satisfied if you are driven by progress and if you are driven by just achieving greater objectives. In a country like New Zealand, especially if you're in the service sector, there could be instances where you just have to adapt and know that things are not going to go anywhere. And if you are working many hours, that it may end up not being utilized in the best possible way. But just something to watch out for. there's also a lack of leadership, and that's not necessarily only present in New Zealand these days. But if you look at those big corporate leaders of the world, most of them obviously originate from the US. You don't hear any of them here in New Zealand. The CEOs, they kind of follow a set template. They'll come in an organization for 3 or 4 years, make structural changes to their executive leadership teams, and depart in 3 or 4 years. I haven't seen too much of mentoring or people passing on their expertise onto the say the junior level employees. That doesn't happen. So you kind of on your own most of the time. The journey is purely yours and what you want to do with it. So I'm not saying that it's a huge problem, but don't expect to come here and have fantastic leaders who will lift up your careers. And if you do find them, make sure that you hold on to them and you are in constant touch with them, because they are rare. The other con is just around employee retention. I don't think much is done in the space. Obviously, depending on what your perception or what the company's perception is about you. I still feel that they're not going to care too much if you resign, you're out. And this again might be a theme in other countries as well, but I've noticed here focus is paid on acquisition rather than retention. Similar model, if a person hasn't been given a salary increase for many years, but he's a fine talent, he may be at risk of moving on to competition, and if he resigns, chances are that they will say that's fine, go ahead, only to offer the newer candidate 10 to 15% higher salary, who's not even tested. And that's very common here. The only way for people to increase their salaries is basically through switching jobs or through getting internally promoted. When you get internally promoted, in most cases you will not get the market value of the new role that you're moving into, so there's always a discount there in terms of taking the promotion and getting market rates for your salary. So a lot of people just end up switching. The IP that moves around with it is huge, but organizations I don't think tend to bother too much about it, and they just take it as part of normal course of work life. So it's just an observation that I've made. Obviously, if you are highly skilled and you're highly sought after the employee, the organization loves you, then that's not the case. But I'm just talking about in general, and I have noticed here that people just keep switching jobs all the time. That was kind of it in terms of just working life and the environment here. To conclude, great employment laws, very good work-life balance, good diversity coming through, and just people in general here are quite nice. The skill set is not as high as it should be, and there needs to be work done in that space. And as far as some of the negative traits are concerned, just talked about lower productivity levels, lower employment retention or value, and lack of leadership in general. So, that may impact an individual here that works. If I was to say about my experience here, I've worked here for over 12 years now, and it's fantastic. I feel quite lucky that I've done some great roles and moving along quite well in terms of where I'm at in my career. And look, if there was one thing that I would want, it's essentially the productive aspect of the country to go up, because the whole country benefits from high productivity levels and reinforced productivity. I just haven't seen it, and I feel that in the long run, currently the country is enjoying strong migrant numbers. The population growth is boosting the GDP, but if you strip that out, New Zealand's GDP is actually going backwards, and something that the country needs to work on, which it will, because the way the inequality in the country is rising at a very fast pace due to people who are becoming richer and richer very quickly, as opposed to the standard of living for those that do not have property and do not have good paying jobs. It's just going backwards and backwards. So that will hopefully force people to work harder and organizations to be more innovative as far as growth is concerned. and let's see what the next decade here has to promise. But for now, favorable working conditions, and if you're ever considering coming to New Zealand, I can say that definitely I don't think you can go wrong. Obviously it does depend a little bit in terms of what sort of a lifestyle you want. If you want to focus more on family and spending time with them, New Zealand is definitely the place to be. But if you are more towards the ambitious side, you want to achieve great things, and you really want to climb the corporate ladder very fast, you will realize that New Zealand has its own pace in terms of how that can or cannot be achieved. So yeah, it's good to get experience here, but in the long run you may find countries like Australia or even the UK much better options in that space. That was it for this video. Hope to see you guys soon in another video, and if you did like this, do consider subscribing for more content and coverage on the working environment, CFA in general, and yeah, life in New Zealand.